Hello guys, it's your boy Cargo Penths, and this is actually my second take recording this because, people keep interrupting me. And I don't want to cut the video in 400 pieces and then wait 1 hour for it to export, so yeah. I'm going to be reacting to this video. As I said before, you didn't hear it, but I said that I thought he would talk about movement, but I was over here and he started talking about simplicity, which I said a bunch of things that it was wrong. Let's just...
Hey everyone, despite all of the bad press...
Yeah, so basically, I'm going to make it short. Over here, he stated overall general stuff. Basically, and didn't really even say who this video is specifically for, free for what perspective. Didn't say, I pointed that out. And he started with simplicity, which I started debating because... Oh, wait. Pathbuilder exists, which automates every single thing you do. See? Automates every role. And you have easy access to everything. Over here you may see that this seems to be intimidating, but if you think this is intimidating, no, it is not. Over here you can see that I got Ancestry Paragon, which is an optional rule for more advanced players. Free Archetype, again, more advanced rule. And Dedication. And over here, Dedication, which is another one of more advanced rules, which you probably won't use at the first time. So yeah, let's watch it together so we can catch up to about this moment. Yeah, this moment where
Despite
I
all
watching.
the bad press lately about Dungeons & Dragons, I want to talk about a few ways that I think Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is better than Pathfinder 2nd edition.
Yeah.
First of all, simplicity. This is the go-to answer for a lot of people that want
Once
to
again,
compare the two
Pathbuilder.
games, and I think there is some truth to it, but I want to be...
So yeah, most important thing is that it is simple only if you're playing pen and paper exclusively, because you need to change your entire stat block every level in Pathfinder, unless you use a specific rule that just makes you not add level. But you usually add level just to make it easier to balance for the GM. Especially Pathfinder is way simpler for the GM.
Be clear about what we mean. When it comes to the depth of the characters and the worlds and the stories, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and Pathfinder 2nd edition and nearly any role-playing game are limited only by the imagination of those at the table.
Yes, over here I
Simplicity
agree.
in this context means it's easier for the new player to get started with it, and during the game...
Over here, once again, if you use Pathbuilder and tools, I think it's equally as easy to get started with that stuff. But once you play the game, Pathfinder starts being easier with, crits just doubling stuff instead of increasing the amount of dice, and having 3 actions and 1 reaction instead of having your full action and then bonus action and also the movement action that is actually a movement bar, and then you have a reaction. Yeah. That's why I think Pathfinder is simpler than D&D, especially because of action economy.
The rules are much more streamlined. Even a quick look at the character sheets.
Also, quick look at the rogue classes. If Pathfinder Rogue, extra damage if you hit a flat-footed foe. How to make a foe flat-footed? Either flank the foe or catch him lacking. Or her lacking, or anything that the foe is. In D&D, also it works with advantage. If you get advantage on hitting the foe, then you deal the extra sneak attack damage. Which once again, if you hit the foe with advantage, which there are really many ways to gain the advantage, but you know, it's not that simple. Or also, if you hit a foe that is also within like a range of your ally, within melee range of your ally, which is usually 5 feet, but I saw GMs run it as, you know, 10 feet if someone has a polearm or something.
And you can see how it will be easier to get started with Dungeons and Dragons. There's a fraction of the fields that you need to.
Yeah, over here, this is just this thing over here. This is just this, but bigger. And you have 3 saving throws instead of 6 saving throws. And also, you don't need to choose every 4 levels whether or not you want a fit or you want a stat increase, because you get both of these organically.
Complete, and far fewer calculations and decisions needed.
Yeah, I mean, it's automated by Path Builder. Unless you play just pen and paper.
To get your character built so that you can start playing. And then once you're playing, the game has less complexity. My go-to comparison.
No, once again, it doesn't have less complexity. Only thing that you can see as more complex is critical hits. As far as I can see, or that stealth has rules but you know, the fact that stealth has rules means that the GM doesn't need to come up with them. That just works from a perspective. That just can work from a perspective of a completely new player that has an experienced GM, but you know, someone also can be a first-time GM, which is when Pathfinder is really easy to pick up for new GMs and players alike.
Comparison is to look at how critical hits work in both systems.
Once again, probably, yeah, Pathfinder, it is only harder if you just spam attack, you know. If you spam attack, this is only if you're harder. And the GM, once again, handles whether or not a hit is a crit, because, you know, you just say the number that you rolled, and then the DM or GM determines whether or not this is a crit or it is not a crit. Which mostly you will have just a critical failure at nat 1 and critical hit at nat 20, unless you're fighting against weak foes. Then you will have crits more often. But you know, still, GM handles that, and this system makes it way easier for the GM. And the part where player does, you need to roll dice. You need to roll dice a couple of times, extra dice. And you know, just rolling extra dice, it is way less simple than just doubling the number. Unless, of course, you have something like deadly trait. But, you know, not every weapon has this. And, you know, only weapons that have deadly trait that a new player will probably use, is, you know, like a bow. And this is just like a simple miss, then the GM will probably just correct you and say, oh yeah, roll additional die.
Systems. In Dungeons & Dragons, a critical hit is a natural 20.
Oh yeah, and also Path Builder automates these kind of critical hits.
That's it. In Pathfinder 2nd Edition, every single check has a degree of success, and a critical hit is based on how far over the target your result was. A natural 20 has a completely different impact on this.
No, actually this sounds really deceptive, because it implies everything has a degree of success, and depending on how much. No, it's not depending on how much, it's depending on if you have more than 10. And natural 20 has just increases the degree of success, which means turns a fail into a success and a normal hit into a crit, basically. And, you know, unless you're fighting a really, really strong foe, or you attack 3 times in a row, which, you know, every attack is less accurate, but, you know, once again, Path Builder. Path Builder once again automates this. First attack +7, second attack +2, and this. This is the only way you can like fail a roll. See, over here is red, so you lower by 1, which most likely, unless you're fighting a really weak goblin and you're high level, then this is probably gonna be a crit fail. Unless, you know, you're really over leveled, then this is going to be probably a normal fail. Unless you're fighting like a creature that is level 1 when you're at level 20, there's actually no way this will change too much, you know.
Another example is when your character is dying. In Dungeons and Dragons,
okay, dying is just a bit more complicated in D&D, in Pathfinder.
it is a flat d20 roll with a DC of 10. Succeed 3 times before you fail 3 times, and you're good. In Pathfinder 2nd Edition, it is still a flat d20.
I mean, no, it's still flat d20 roll, but only it changes if you die multiple times in one fight before taking a rest. Unless if you just normally die once in a while, then your wounded condition and doomed conditions will just go away. And you know, if you're wounded, that just essentially means that you change the DC by 1, you know. If your DC was like already 10, then you lower it and you need to now roll at least 11, you know. That just stops you from like spamming healing spells and clutching, which once again, min-maxing is another way why I think that D&D is actually harder, because of the power ceiling of each of classes. Like the worst bard will have as much strength as the second worst bard, in my opinion, but by community voted the worst bard will have more strength than the best rogue.
20 roll, but the difficulty class changes every time you make the save, and your damage might carry over if you get knocked unconscious again, causing the DC to change even more. I'm not saying that this simplicity is always better, but if you're just getting started and you want fewer mechanics, then Dungeons & Dragons...
Well, yeah, I mean, this works only if everyone is a newbie. But you know, every mechanic, if you're a newbie and you don't have a starter set of Pathfinder, but somehow get a book for D&D, starter set for D&D that is, I think, more expensive than the starter set for Pathfinder. And then
Dragons might be the better choice. The next thing that Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition does better is backgrounds.
Sorry,
playing games.
Sorry for my brain lagging. And backgrounds, I don't see why. Backgrounds give more flavor to both characters. I mean, you both write stuff in D&D, you just have like more places on character sheet where you can put it. At least that's what I think, because I don't really look at the other part of the page over here. Wait. Oh. Okay. Yeah. Okay, this is the whole thing. Where in D&D you have like... No, wait. In D&D actually you have less background options. Okay, so I still prove my point. Oh yeah, and 3 hours of watch time. We went up to 3 hours of watch time. Thank you guys for that.
And you are playing characters. Both games have backgrounds. But Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition takes this a step further and really emphasizes the personality of the character.
What? I mean, if you mean a background feature, then I disagree on background feature as itself, Because you know, in D&D backgrounds, you just get a bunch of proficiencies, and one skill that you will probably never use, which is usually just find food somewhere, or people will forgive you if you do like small acts, which Pathfinder does, but better because it gives you free skill feats. In addition to proficiencies too. And yes, skill feats actually give you pretty much the same things, but usually more useful, which is probably more enhancing. And as I showed, the whole thing about like the Pathfinder back of the character sheet, it has around the same. It has at least the same amount of things, or even more, because I didn't really look at the back of the D&D character sheet as much, but from what I remember, that is probably the case.
With each background, you get to select traits and goals and ideals and flaws.
No, it's not just with backgrounds. You get to select that on your own. Okay, so yeah, this is the page 2, which, at least from what I see, it has around the same amount of content. Yeah, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and character schedule, that's 14, and it has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Also 14. And I didn't count the name because the name is over here. Sorry for getting that thing a little bit wrong at the start, because you know, I don't really look at the back of the character. I usually just use Path Builder. But you know, yeah, so it's equally the same, and backgrounds don't really change that. Backgrounds actually in Pathfinder are more vague, a little bit more vague, so you can actually do stuff with them. I mean, I mean, they're a bit more vague usually. I mean, there are more backgrounds, so there's more customization to your character. So yeah, backgrounds are better in Pathfinder, I think.
All things that give your character depth and allow you to really immerse yourself in the role. And then inspiration points even provide a way for a dungeon master to reward players that make great.
About the inspiration thing, you have inspiration points that, you know, you see this thing over here that's called hero points. It works literally the same as inspiration points.
Effort to do things that are true to their character. I'm not.
Once again, hero points work the same way.
Not saying that you cannot do this in Pathfinder, but as part of the core
Hero points are in core rules.
This is much stronger in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. And finally, advantage. This could easily have been something that could.
Advantage? I mean, I think both are simple. With Pathfinder, it's just +2. In D&D, it's roll 2 dice, pick the higher number. So it's pretty, which, you know, it's pretty simple, you know. Both are pretty simple. I mean, like, Roll 2 dice, choose a higher number. It just requires you to know how big the number are, and +2 is just at 2, attacking a flat-footed foe, as I said, with rogue. And advantage with rogue, but also we have other thing, which was supposed to mimic flanking, which, you can organically show to players by something like there's an enemy, and you can just advise the player to flank. At least that's my experience when I started. I see the enemy. I'm playing basically a barbarian, so of course I raged. I decided to go near an enemy, and the GM just told me, before you go there, actually, if you stand over here on this square, you're flanking the enemy. You're from one side of the enemy, and on the other side is your ally, which means you're flanking, which gives you +2 to hit that enemy. So I went there and actually got a crit that was a difference just by +2, so it can be learned organically and pretty easy. I just raged, went there, and hit the enemy.
Attributes to the simplicity of the game, but it was such a large part of D&D 5th edition, it deserves its own call out. Pathfinder uses a traditional...
Yeah, pretty much everything over here was simple that. With D&D you roll 2 dice, but True Strike, for example, is bad because of that, because everything gives you advantage, and True Strike is actually viable in Pathfinder because it's limited. Because the True Strike is a spell instead of a cantrip, but it's just you roll 2 dice, which you can also stack with all the bonuses, and you don't really it's still simple because you usually just pick the higher bonus. So yeah, if you just decide to start a campaign from a starter set, at least from my experience, Pathfinder is as easy, if not easier. It has just more rules, which actually makes it simpler for the GM. And for players, simplicity doesn't change that much.
Traditional role-playing game approach of rolling a d20 and then adding any bonuses and penalties to determine the result. Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition introduced...
Oh yeah, and I said I think a lot because I want to emphasize that it may not be the case for everyone, Some people may just prefer or find easier other stuff, but at least from my experience, Path Builder basically made everything super easy right now. And D&D Beyond so I think that both games are as simple, just Pathfinder is more balanced, and that's pretty much the only difference I see with Pathfinder. That it's more balanced and easy for the GM. And for new players, it makes all the min-maxing and stuff like that not really that necessary, because there's a low difference between the best character you can make and the worst character you can make, as long as you're not an insane person and just make a sorcerer that has negative in charisma. I mean, that's technically impossible unless you actually, I think that's impossible to make a sorcerer like that unless you roll for stats. That mostly you have this easy point by system. Once again, I'm going to show you on Path Builder. Once again, see, you just check these things. Over here you have -2 intelligence, so it goes over here and it's all automated. See, I can change this strength thing to constitution. Now they're both 16s. I can change this back to strength. Now constitution 14 and strength 18. It's actually pretty simple. And yeah, I didn't give any points in wisdom because of flavor. Because I just decided to just give sorcerer instead of druid. because of the because stuff like that.
Advantage or disadvantage to determine most outcomes. If you have advantage, then you roll 2d20s and you take the higher result. If you have disadvantage, then you would take the lower result. There may still be additional bonuses that get added, but most...
Yes, and actually about bonuses, you just pick the higher bonuses with Pathfinder, and that's the part of why it's balanced and easier, in my opinion.
Most of them get rolled into advantage and disadvantage rolls instead. And this makes all parts of the game, especially combat, super fast.
Yeah, I mean, you just add +2, like, you can have, like, at the most, you can have just your basic attack plus runes as one spell, and I think then flanking, that give us, like, 4 sources maximum of bonuses. Where in D&D you can like stack infinitely everything, and then on top of that also give yourself advantage. Which, yeah, once again, min-maxing stuff.
Mechanic is really simple to learn and it's really simple to use, and that puts it ahead of Pathfinder. Now I'm sure that for every item I have listed here, there will be those that say that I am wrong.
Oh yeah, that's me. No, it's me, but no disrespect to you. I think that your opinion is valid, but at least from my experience, if you use digital tools, they're both equally as easy. If not Pathfinder being easier, because I think that Pathfinder is like better made than D&D Beyond. So yeah, that's just my opinion. No disrespect, no hate towards this guy. Let him have the opinion. His opinion doesn't really hurt anybody. But I personally think that if you use digital tools, then Pathfinder becomes the easier system.
And I am not saying that these are right in all cases. And I'm definitely not making an overall comparison.
Oh yeah. Yeah, now the issue is addressed. Like, the only issue I have with this guy is that now he says that it's not overall thing. But since he was talking about simplicity and stuff like that for the whole video, I think that he meant it as a thing for new players. So yeah, as a thing for new players, but only criticism I have towards this guy, because most of the stuff is just opinion, which find that this is an opinion. It's not really backed up by like solid thing that says that it's the objective truth on either end. It's just what personally we like better. So we had all respect and stuff like that. Sorry for the sounds if you hear them, but my dog just decided to like. Yeah, my dog is trying to bite my carpet again. So yeah. Well, so yeah. Once again, the whole opinion thing. The only real criticism that I think is objective, at least, from my experience, is that you should state who the video is for at the start of the video. Only real criticism I have towards this guy is that he didn't state who the video is for at the start of the video. You know? And just stated it at the end, because if you don't say that, it sounds like you're saying this in general. Of course, no hate towards you. It's still your opinion, so it doesn't really deceive, so I will still like leave a like or something, and might as well subscribe. Of course with the bell, because I'm not a buffoon. I know that the bell is the real subscribe button. And yeah, essentially the only criticism I have is that you should have stated that these tips are mostly for new players at the start of the video.
Comparison between Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder. I am just looking at this from the perspective of a new player that is wanting to get into role-playing games for the first time, and those that are wanting to play a really fast game that is light on rules. And if you're making...
Yeah, I mean, at the far... At the... wait. My tongue got a little twisted. So yeah, once again, I basically think that that's whether or not that's true. That depends on the resources you have, because if you have like all resources, starter sets and stuff like that, then yeah, sure. But if then at least from my experience, Pathfinder should be easier. But you know, if you just want to start your first time in a homebrew world in an already existing campaign, then I think D&D has less rules, and then it can be better. But that all depends on your DM, and does your DM have experience teaching new players?
A choice between Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and Pathfinder 2nd edition, then these are my reasons why I think Dungeons & Dragons would probably be the better choice for you. But what do you think? Did I miss the mark? For what other reasons would you put Dungeons & Dragons ahead of Pathfinder 2nd?
Yeah, that's actually funny. For what other reasons would you put Dungeons & Dragons? Yeah, actually, what I mentioned, movement is a bit better than in D&D. I mean, from my experience, it should be a combination of both of these movements. You just spend one of your actions in Pathfinder, and then you get a movement bar just like in D&D that you can spend across your entire turn. So yeah, that's pretty much the only thing where I prefer D&D over Pathfinder. Like, that is not related to like any specific campaign. Only mechanic that I prefer in D&D is that movement is a bar, you know. And yeah, that's pretty much all I would add. But yeah, everything else, in my opinion, personal opinion, goes to Pathfinder.
Edition. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Love to hear from you as always. Until next time, take care.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I just want to like explain my point of view. This whole video is just me explaining my point of view. My point of view. So yeah, I'm not saying that this guy is like preaching heresy or something. I'm just saying that from my personal opinion, Pathfinder is better if you use digital tools and stuff like that. It's easier if you use digital tools and all that stuff. I'm just trying to give more perspective for new players and stuff like that. Yeah, actually thinking about this, I should have stated that I'm trying to give more perspective at the start of the video. Yeah, a little hypocritical of me, but I will probably put this in a title so you actually like get it to understand it. And yeah, right now if you see this, there should be like a screen with all the cards and stuff like that. On my screen you should see like cards, my channel and stuff like that. So yeah, that just essentially says that you should smash that subscribe button, and then you should probably check out some other video. You know, did you smash the subscribe button? Is the subscribe button smashed yet? If it is, then thank you very much. Do the same to the like button right now. I'm gonna give you a few seconds. Okay, and now click on the video in the card or a playlist.